there. It is currently 6:03 on this Sunday, the 6th of March, 2016. You're listening to the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic. I'm your host, Christopher Haig. Thanks for tuning in and listening. My first show of March, which is absolutely crazy to think that, we're a week into March already. March Madness will be kicking off soon. Politics is everywhere, of course. And 2016 is really in full swing now. Kind of an all over the place week. It never got super cold. The snow was a bit more than annoying, but it was sufficiently warm, I guess, up to a certain point. I mean, you wouldn't need a jacket every day. And we've got kind of a mixed bag this coming week as far as the weather goes. Hopefully not as much snow now that we're into March. But, even if there's a little bit of snow, the stuff that did fall this week stuck to everything it should stick to. The grass, the trees, the tops of buildings. None of it stuck to the roads, which is, if we have to have snow, that's probably the best kind of snow you can hope for. Alright, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll get to news and our first check of WQBR weather. Why did a 13-year veteran high school teacher resign? And what happened when a Washington man took a selfie with a gun? And to be honest, if you have any shred of common sense, you'll know exactly where that story goes. All that and more when we come back to the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic. Here is Jump by Crisscross. There you go. That was Prayer by Disturbed. Before that was I'll Sue Ya by Weird Al, who is not even arguably, just it's a known fact. He's the king of parody. Alright, you're listening to the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic. Let's jump right into the news with one doozy of a story that, I don't know if this is an ad for passcodes on phones. If this isn't a perfect ad for passcoding a phone, I don't know what is. So, this happened just this past week, Tuesday. A South Carolina high school teacher, 13-year veteran, loved by everybody, was forced to resign after the district threatened to fire her, and now she's facing criminal charges. What for, you may ask? She failed to lock her phone, which she put in a closed drawer in her desk that, as I'm sure a lot of you know from being kids, you're not allowed to go into. So, at this school in Union County, it's a school system Leigh and Arthur worked in, teachers are required to walk the halls between periods as, monitors. While she was out of her room, a student went into her desk, broke into her desk, stole her phone, found it unlocked, and started going through pictures until he found a, we'll say, less than professional picture that Arthur had sent to her husband on Valentine's Day. I'll let you guys fill in the details on that. He found the various pictures and distributed them to as many people as he could in the school, classmates, and then also posted them to social media. When Arthur got back to the room, the student told her, "Your day of reckoning is coming." And then, obviously, when there's an issue like that, the immediate reaction is to fire the teacher. Problem is, wasn't her fault. Well, that's the first problem. It wasn't her fault. She didn't post them. She didn't send them to anybody except her husband. A student stole her phone, stole the pictures, and then distributed them. But now she's facing criminal charges because she is, and I quote, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, end quote. Which turns out it's punishable by up to 3 years in prison or a fine as large as $3,000. So this woman lost her job, is facing multiple years in prison, and is going to, or lose up to $3,000 by having her phone stolen. Second, the next problem with this, what happened to the student? Absolutely nothing. The student who stole the phone, who took a picture on his phone of the pictures on his teacher's phone and distributed them to everybody, isn't in trouble at all. Up to this point, as far as we know, the student hasn't been reprimanded at all. But this teacher was forced to resign or have the district fire her. So here's my thing. Do I think she should have been fired? No. I absolutely do not. Here's why. While normally having a teacher, a high school teacher, and of course, a teacher in high school, I'm sure, everybody who's been through high school recently knows how guys' minds work in that age group. And I can tell you firsthand, especially going to an all-guys high school like I did, that was 24/7 at school. Had the teacher posted this, herself, yeah, she should be fired, but she didn't. She wasn't part of the pictures becoming public. So no, I don't think she should have been fired. I don't think there should have been any disciplinary action for her at all. The principal might have had to, or the head of the school system, the superintendent, should have said, get a passcode for your phone, but that's it. No disciplinary actions, no fine, no jail time, no lost job. What really should have happened is after people discovered who the student was, who, broke into the phone and, took the pictures and distributed them, he should have been the one in legal trouble, because 26 states and D.C. have a law on the books making revenge porn a crime. And if you don't know what revenge porn is, it's the act of publicly distributing nude photos beyond their intended recipient as a way of humiliating the subject. Which, that's exactly what happened, because the student said when the teacher came back in, your day of reckoning is coming. Meaning he wasn't just, out searching and he just happened to find it and spread it. He was looking to do something to this teacher. And he did. He got her fired. So, I see a lot of issues with this. And my stance is, while normally it would be a problem for a teacher to have done this, nothing should have happened to Leanne Arthur. Absolutely nothing. Because what was she guilty of? Not having a passcode on a phone? That's really it. And you can't even fault her for taking the pictures in the first place. She took them on her phone, sent them to her husband of, I'm not sure how many years, but if they're doing that with enough, security in what they're doing, they've probably been married for a few years, more than a few years. All of the punishment should have been on the student. Now, whether it should have been just a suspension or full expulsion, I'm not quite sure. I mean, if this kid's been a problem, if this wasn't his first offense, then yeah, he probably should have been expelled. The high school I went to, if you were suspended 3 times in I think a 2-year period, or 4 times in a year, you were kicked out. So, if this kid, if this was his first real issue, then it should have just been a suspension. But it should have been, a hefty penalty for everything that he did, and Arthur should have gotten off scot-free because she really did nothing wrong. And this, and in this same line in 2013, a Catholic, now keep in mind this is a Catholic high school in Virginia, expelled a female student who sent a topless photo to a lacrosse star, but took no action against the lacrosse star, who then shared the picture with the entire team. Again, same thing. Now, it is a bit more iffy because in 2013, in Virginia, they were both students, but still effectively the same thing. It's the exact same case. You have a female student who sends a topless photo to one person, and then it gets made public without her consent, without her knowing. And in both cases, the woman is the one who gets in trouble. And I'm not going to turn this into, a gender war and gender inequality. I'm not breaking the radio show down into that at 6:24. I've not been on the air for an hour. I'm not going to break it down like that. But I do think there is a problem with, treating cases like these two in a very victim blame heavy kind of way. Really, really skewing who should be in trouble, and especially more in this more recent case, because Arthur sent it to somebody who wasn't in connection with the school at all. This was so far removed from the school, but then it was still made public by a student. It's just, I don't know. I mean, the whole revenge porn and, sexting crimes has always been really, really weird. There was a recent case in North Carolina. A teenager was charged as a felony sex offender because he took pictures of himself, but because he was technically a minor, he got charged as a felon because it was, in the loosest terms, considered child porn. So these laws do have, a lot to catch up to. But this really isn't a law issue. It's the school system issue. It's Union County's problem. It's a fault in the way that they think. And I'm sure there'd still be just as much outrage had the student gotten in trouble and the teacher get off scot-free, but at least in that case, they're punishing the right person. They're punishing the actual perpetrator and not the victim. Yeah, I mean, just a weird story, and it makes me sad. That common sense can be so far removed from so many people in power. Like the edict to fire this 13-year veteran teacher came right from, it wasn't the principal of the school. It came from way up in the school system, meaning somebody in that position of so much power, decided to, just lose his common sense entirely. Speaking of losing common sense, let's talk about selfie deaths. Because apparently this is a thing that's still happening because people are stupid. So this story comes out of Concrete, Washington. A 43-year-old man was taking a selfie with his gun. I'm assuming it's a pistol. The article doesn't say. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. He's done this before. He and his girlfriend have actually done this plenty of times. And, he did take as many precautions as he could. It wasn't like, he would plan it out. He would take every round out of the gun and set it far aside, but he'd load them back in when he put the gun away. And he's done this 2 or 3 times. But this time, somehow, he managed to leave one bullet in the gun, and guess where that bullet went? Through his head. And he is dead. So he died. 43 years old. Died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound taking a selfie. And his death is being ruled as accidental, as it should be. But as it turns out, this is not the first. This isn't the first selfie death. This isn't even the first shooting themselves in the head selfie death. Last fall, a 19-year-old from Houston died while taking pictures of himself with a gun and posting them to Instagram. This kid thought the gun was unloaded when he held it to his head for a picture. And very obviously it wasn't. And we're to the point in this messed up society where this is a statistic I can say with the utmost accuracy. More people die while attempting to take selfies than they do in shark attacks. Shark attacks are no longer deadlier than taking a picture of yourself. Why? Because people are stupid. Last year, at least 27 people died in selfie-related incidents all around the world. And something's wrong in India, because they were home to half of those deaths. And the Indian government actually decided to ban some selfies outright. So this society is to the point where a country's government has to ban selfies. When there are all over the world, there are no selfie zones. Which I can't believe that's a phrase I have to say. But there are no selfie zones established around large religious gatherings, beaches, ledges, and other treacherous spots where selfies might turn deadly. And the thought behind the religious gathering is they fear that the amount of people there taking selfies would induce a bottleneck that could lead to a stampede. But yeah, just ridiculous that in 2016, this technologically advanced age we're in, where we have these amazing devices that we can take pictures of ourselves with, we are still so inept at being smart that we think doing anything lighthearted with a gun is a good idea, which it isn't. But B, trying to take a picture of ourselves with a gun in general is already not a good thing, because most of those pictures you see right next to a mugshot of somebody who shot up a mall. Direct correlation. But then to put the gun to your head, even if you think it's unloaded, there's this crazy theory called Darwinism, thinning of the herd, survival of the fittest. And nature is kind of just culling the human herd itself by eliminating stupidity. And of course, I do feel bad for this guy's family, for his girlfriend who was right next to him when the gun went off. I can't imagine how hard it's got to be to A, have somebody that close to you die, B, to have them shot to death But to have it self-inflicted through the head, even if it's not a suicide, just all of the implications of somebody dying by shooting himself in the face, I can't imagine how hard that would be to deal with. But on the other hand, I don't feel bad that stupid people are dead. I don't. I find it very hard to feel 100% bad when you have articles like this one with the headline, "Washington man accidentally kills himself while taking a selfie with his gun." It's hard to feel bad for people who are highlighted in this article, who are featured in an article with a headline like this. It's hard to feel entirely bad for them or their families. As brutal as that is to say, and I'm sure uncomfortable to hear, it's very much the truth. It's a sad truth that articles like that have to be written, that police have to show up and investigate a case of, really dying by stupid. Like, this guy dumbed himself to death. It's wasn't a shootout. It wasn't a suicide. The idiot pointed a gun to his head and went to take a picture and died because of it. Survival of the fittest. All right, on to the first check of WQBR weather. Today was pretty good. It wasn't too warm, wasn't too cold. We were in the 40s most of the day, mostly sunny. And tomorrow we're going to jump right up to mid-50s, partly cloudy, no snow. Tuesday, going to be a bit warmer. We're looking at about 62 degrees as a high, 30% chance of snow showers, so it's going to be mostly cloudy all day. Wednesday, 60 degrees. We jump up to a 70% chance of snow showers. Thursday, dropping back down to 51 degrees as a high, with a 30% chance of snow. Friday, we finally get a reprieve, 52 as a high, partly cloudy, no snow. Saturday, 56, partly cloudy, 60% chance of snow. And Sunday is going to be our big day of snow, 55 degrees, just snow all day. So, despite Wednesday and Sunday looking like the two worst days to go outside and do anything, so long as you have a hat or a hood on, you're going to be fine, because it's, all this week is going to be, mid to upper 50s and 60s, which for March is fine, but while it's snowing it's even better, because none of it's going to stick. It may look annoying when you're looking out a window at it. It may be annoying having to walk through it. I know that firsthand, especially the super thick clumps of snowflakes. Those are awful. But you know that in 15 minutes, you're not going to see any of it anywhere. It's just going to stick to itself, but it's not going to make any new mess, which is amazing. But yeah, so kind of a mixed bag of weather. But, the warmth should take over, and we should have a fairly normal week. All right, we're going to take another break here on the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic. When we come back, can your employer spy on your iPhone? And are period policies the next workplace benefit? All that, along with a check of sports when we come back. You're listening to the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic here on WQBR Eagle Radio. Here is a mashup for you of In the End by Linkin Park and All Star by Smash Mouth. There you go. That was Supermassive Black Hole by Muse. Before that was Till I Collapse by Eminem. It's currently 6:50 on this Sunday, the 6th of March. You're listening to the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic. I'm your host, Chris. Thanks for tuning in and listening tonight. All right, so got another Apple story in the news. If any of you were surprised, you obviously have not been paying attention to social media or the news in general. As most of you will know, as I covered last week, Apple and the FBI are still deep in their struggle about the San Bernardino shooter's iPhone and having to break into it and everything. Well, now, reports are coming out that the next version of Apple's iOS, iOS 9.3, will be able to tell your employer what you're doing on your iPhone. So if you're working at a place that provides you a phone specifically for work use, and it's an iPhone, this next update of the iOS will allow your employer to track your internet traffic and know where you are. So obviously this is a big thing because it's another privacy issue, as if Apple didn't have enough already. But I mean, it's a phone given to you by your company. So your phone will tell you in the About section in your settings, it will tell you, and I quote, "This iPhone is supervised," whatever company name, "can monitor your internet traffic and locate this device," end quote. So it looks like this next update will only affect people who have phones through their work, but I know that's a good portion of people. So, and I don't know how deep the web traffic monitoring can go. I know that, locating your, I can only imagine that's for, people who call in sick to go do whatever. I imagine that'll be a big draw to it, but I can't find any article anywhere that says how deep internet traffic monitoring will go. So, it could be as little as, okay, they're on this site, and that's all it'll say. It could go as deep as they're on this site in this section looking at this article. So like right now, if I was looking at this article on my iPhone from, let's just say I have an iPhone from my job, it could say I'm on bgr.com in the text section looking at this article. It could go that deep, which is very, very worrying to a lot of people for a lot of obvious reasons. Despite Apple saying that this new message is meant to improve transparency regarding the safety and privacy of the iPhone, and it kind of gives companies more, how do I want to put this, more control over their workforce, but in a way that's not completely inhibitive to anything. Despite all of this, people still don't want anybody looking into their phone. They don't want anyone to know where they are when they don't want anybody to know. People like their autonomy. And that's why I don't have an iPhone. This, while I am covering this doesn't affect me now and probably won't ever affect me. But yeah, so a lot of people want their autonomy, and especially, on a phone from their job, which they're required to have all the time. I have a few people in my family who have iPhones through their work, and they have to have them on their person at all times, because even when they're not working, they can still, be called upon to come into the office or, be able to get to a work desktop from their house, which is absolutely a thing you can do when you do X, Y, or Z things. So the fact that this iPhone that you're required to have by your job, have on you 24/7, can now be tracked location-wise and have your internet activity monitored to nth degree. Like I said, I've not been able to find anything saying how deep it can go, but this is still worrying, if not on its own, then for the reason that Apple is still tied up with the FBI over privacy and security issues. But yeah, I hope this kind of goes away. I do like the idea of a company being able to know if you're telling the truth or not when you call in sick, but actually just want to go eat where you want for lunch or do whatever wherever else other than work. So I like the locate ability, and of course, locate your iPhone is an option and an app that comes pretty standard with phones. But a company being able to do it, I like that. I'm not too keen on the whole web traffic tracking. That can lead to a lot of different things coming to light that you don't necessarily want anybody to know about. Not that I'm saying that people would ever look up anything shady on a phone, but you expect a phone to have some level of privacy. Like you can do something personal on a work phone and not really have to worry about it, becoming public or, getting in trouble for it, which the moment that happens, the world's going to flip out. At least the U.S. will. But, people like being able to do something without getting, do something private, in their private house, in their private room, on their phone. They like being able to do stuff with that level of privacy and not have anybody know about it unless they want to. But yeah, iOS 9.3 will allow companies to track your position through your company-given iPhone and monitor web traffic. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes, especially as Apple continues to fight the FBI. Alright, going from one workplace story to another, we have a story coming out of the UK. I'm covering this because not only is it a good idea in general, but it looks like it's building up enough steam in the UK to come over to the US. And come to all US companies. So in the UK, several companies have this thing called period policies, which, now granted they aren't a new thing. Menstrual leave was approved in Japan in the 40s. But what this will do is if there are any, complications, any pain, any, severe amount of pain because of your menstrual cycle, you won't be required to be at work. Because not only is that physically not okay to have to, especially if you're working in, any sort of mild to heavy labor-intensive job, it's definitely not okay to, force someone to just suck up pain that can get really bad and force them to go through this labor-intensive job. That's not okay. So it looks like, that the UK is supporting this, and, there are a lot of people expressing interest in this idea in other companies in the UK and in the US. Actually, because menstrual leave isn't something that is here in the U.S., women could be covered under sick leave policies, but a lot of companies, when they ask, what sickness is it, they don't like giving sick leave to something that they know is going to happen continually. And a lot of employees may feel very uncomfortable using sick leave for their cycle because of how gross the cycle is perceived. Because despite it being 2016 and us knowing about this forever, people are still grossed out by it. And, kind of rightly so. But, yeah, this is very, very quickly gaining traction in the UK. And it was, like I said, it was introduced in Japan in the 40s. And it looks like, despite it not being in the US, there's a lot of support for it coming over here. And while it wouldn't force them to, take time off because of their cycle, they would have the option to and not have it count as a sick day, which, in the U.S. is currently as close as we can get to this. But companies do have limited sick days that you can take. You reach a certain point, and no matter what, you can't take any without pay docking or what have you. But this would circumvent the sick day policy and just add another box to tick effectively. A lot of supporters of this are claiming it would allow women to work more flexibly. They can kind of work on more of an equal footing with men. They have all of these options to make it seem like they're worth more in the workplace, which I'm all for it. But on the other side, you get it seems like a lot more people are being verbal against it than for it, at least in the U.S. There are a lot of people, women specifically, which I said I wasn't going to break it down into a gender inequality argument, but there are a lot of Tumblr-style feminists who don't want this support for themselves and for other women because they don't want women to look weak for taking this option. And, kind of they're seeing it as, wimping out of something that they have to deal with all of the time. Or not all the time, but they do have to deal with it on a regular basis. I want this to gain enough traction to come to the U.S. if for no other reason than it would spark more conversations about, workplaces taking employee requests seriously, and making it more of a place of equality among the employees, because that's how you get people to stay. And that's how you get your 10, 15, 20, 30, 40-year employees. Like that's how you get, a lot of support for the company. That's how you make your company look good, is to bring in policies like this. But, as per usual, despite it being 2016 and common sense being needed to live, there are a lot of people who have vacated their common sense, like the Tumblr-style feminists, and say that they don't want it because it would make them look weak. But yeah, very, very interesting article. And like I said, I want it to succeed. I do. I may seem very, very pessimistic this week, But I do want this to succeed. I want it to become a thing, not just in the U.S., but everywhere. We need to catch up to the U.K. We need to catch up to Japan and have policies that promote equality, and kind of soothe the notion that what you're going through as a woman is weird and taboo and not okay. The moment we do that, we're going to see a severe drop in body shaming and body issues. That's another one of the big reasons people are supporting ideas like this. It's that because it's still such a gross subject to talk about, women get down on themselves and mad at themselves that this is something they have to go through, and it just makes them feel worse about themselves. But if they can go to work and see, okay, my employer is really, taking this seriously and, making it more about the health and the well-being of its employees, I don't have to feel so bad about it now because there's somebody on my side. And as somebody who doesn't currently like the way he looks, I can tell you firsthand, it feels like you're alone. Like everything's just so negative, you don't have anybody on your side, and policies like this would make it better for everybody. Like there really are no negatives to this policy. There are none. There's no inequality. There's no being able to abuse it. Because if the internet has taught me anything, it's that menstrual cycles can be tracked pretty easily, and charted and recorded and even predicted with creepy accuracy. Despite being creepy, it's absolutely something you guys should look up. But yeah, this is purely a positive change. There's nothing negative about it. So yeah, UK is pushing it. Japan has had it for decades. And hopefully the US will be the next major player to add it to their workplace. Alright, we're going to get to a check of WQBR sports, starting with the Detroit Pistons. They had a very, very embarrassing loss at the Garden to the Knicks, 102-89. Very, very Pistons-esque performance. Andre Drummond led the team with 21 points and 16 rebounds, but it was really just no use. We only managed to outscore the Knicks in the third period, and that was only by 6 points. The next game is Wednesday against the Mavericks at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, and currently we are playing the Trailblazers right now. At halftime, we are up 58-51. And the Pistons are currently 9th in the Eastern Conference. Eastern Michigan basketball. We rallied in the second half to beat Toledo 79-75, giving us home court advantage in the first round of the tournament, of the MAC tournament. Bond and Mangum led the Eagles with 13 points each. Thompson had 8 rebounds. Next game is Monday at 7:30 against Toledo again. Like I said, first round of the MAC tournament. It's a home game, so it'll be here at the Convocation Center. And if you happen to be in town or in the area, we have been phenomenal this season, which is weird because our football team is not that great, but our basketball team has just been so impressive and so fun to watch this season. So if you happen to be in the area, I'd absolutely recommend going to the Convocation Center and watching us beat Toledo again. And the Red Wings, we lost 5-2 to the Blackhawks on Wednesday. Richards and Shahan both scored, but not until the third period. The next game is Tuesday against the Blue Jackets in Columbus. And we are playing against the Blackhawks again right now. We are with just under 14 minutes to go in the third period. The Red Wings are down 2-1 against the Blackhawks in the rematch. We're currently 4th in the Atlantic Division, and despite it sounding bad, if any team can pull it back from one humiliating loss and a current loss to the Blackhawks of all teams, if any team can pull it back after that, it's absolutely the Red Wings. I have the utmost faith in them. All right, we're going to take another break here. When we come back, we'll get to some more news and a second check of weather, including left lane laws coming to Michigan, and buses in Maryland supposedly recording full conversations now. All that and more when we come back to the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic. Here is Helena by My Chemical Romance. There you go. That was Learn to Fly by the Foo Fighters, as requested by Rachel. And before that was The Cup of Life by Ricky Martin. It is currently 7:23 on this Sunday, the 6th of March. You're listening to the 6-8 with DJ Eclectic here on WQBR Eagle Radio. I'm your host, Christopher Haig. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Okay, so got a couple of, one of these stories is weird. The other is almost heartwarming. Almost. So, this first story, let me read you the headline. Michigan State Police launch effort to educate left lane drivers. This is out of Rockford. So, I'm not sure what your guys' experience was with driver's ed or whatever equivalent program. But the first segment was a lot of basics of driving. You know, when do you have the right of way? How do you get on a freeway? How do you operate the different lanes of the highway? You know, when can you make left turns? When can you make right turns? Why do you have to make Michigan lefts all the time? And this story is going to emphasize the how do you operate the lanes of a highway part that I can distinctly remember from my first segment of driver's ed. So this story out of Rockford is somehow news. I don't quite understand it. Michigan State troopers from Rockford and Lakeview posts are on the lookout for southpaw drivers from now through the end of April. And they're looking for people who are using the left lane incorrectly. Now, for those of you who have been on the highway at all, you know the left lane is the fast lane. It's the passing lane. You're never supposed to pass on the right. But there are a lot of people, I assume all over the country, but in Michigan specifically, who have decided to make the left lane a cruising lane, despite that actually being the center lane, and occasionally driving distractingly slowly in the left lane, which is as much a hazard as driving fast is. And, you know, from now through the end of April, Michigan State troopers are going to be cracking down on those lane violations. And it's not just going to be a ticket. Motorists stopped for lane use violation will be educated by the trooper on the law and how the motorist actions are disrupting traffic flow. So not only is it going to be a hassle for you to stop going to wherever you're going and pull off and get a ticket from the cop, but you're gonna get a lecture on top of it, which, I mean, it's good that they're educating, but I assume it's also like, you know, a way to kind of say it twice. Like, you're telling them, but then you're also delaying them by however long the state trooper really wants to take in giving the offending motorist a lecture on why they're doing, or, you know, what they're doing wrong and why it's so wrong. So this is from Fox 17 in West Michigan, and I'm going to let you take a listen to the news segment on this.
They're going to be putting a lot of focus on this. It's something that drives a lot of people absolutely nuts. I know I'm certainly grouped in with that category, but now officers with Michigan State Police are going to pay special attention to something that's always been illegal, but is now just getting a little bit more of a heavy focus here on major roadways in Michigan. It's called Operation Southpaw. It's going to focus on left lane squatting. It's actually already in effect. So from now until the end of April, MSP officers will be paying very special attention to people who use that left lane for general travel instead of what it's meant for, which of course is passing. They say that recently they've experienced a lot of complaints about misuse of the left lane on highways like I-96 where we are now, US 131, even US 31 over Muskegon, and they mentioned the Beltline too, even something that's any kind of two-lane highway, major roadway where there are multiple lanes. They're going to be focusing on those. Of course, that misuse of the left lane can cause a lot of problems for other drivers. Again, this is something that has always been illegal and against the law here in Michigan, but now officers are rolling out this new education effort to help the public understand just what they can and they cannot do when it comes to this type of driving. This isn't just about scolding or giving out tickets either. Today we talked to Lieutenant Chris McIntyre with MSP. He explained to us what the goal of this initiative was.
Well, the idea is educate the public on what the law says regarding driving in the left lane, when you can and can't drive in the left lane. So the first part is the education of the public, and the next component will be to enforce the law if we need to.
And they will, he said, along with education and explanations of just what drivers are doing wrong during traffic stops, you could also be subject to tickets as well. Now, this will be rolled out again starting today and going all the way through the month of April at the Lakeview and Rockford post.
So yeah, almost a very basic lesson, and I hope they don't have to make a lot of stops, because despite my really naturally pessimistic attitude, I would like to keep a little bit of faith in humanity and common sense, which, if you've been listening to the show thus far, seems to be kind of vacated from most of the public. But yeah, so I like that they're doing something about it. You know, I know that seeing people drive wrong is beyond frustrating. You know, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving. When you know someone's doing something wrong and just they're not doing anything about it, it's the most frustrating thing in the world. And even if this is just a small effort, it's not lasting very long. It's only going to the end of next month. But if they can educate a few people, hopefully they'll spread the word to wise up for their sake, so they won't get stopped randomly going wherever they're going, and for the sake of everybody else who has to deal with their idiotic, stupid driving. Okay, so from one travel story to another, this one coming out of Maryland. Devices on public buses in Maryland are listening to private conversations. So I didn't know that this was a thing. The Maryland Senate on Tuesday delayed action on a bill that will clamp down on when public buses and trains can record the private conversations of their passengers. Yeah, so I guess nobody quite understands how seriously we take privacy, even in a public place. If we're having a conversation on a bus, we don't need everybody in the world knowing about it. And these people must really be a bit slow on the uptake, as there are senators who are pushing this bill to let devices on buses and trains be recording in mass surveillance 24/7. There are a few people, though, who haven't vacated their common sense, like Senator Robert A. Zirkin, who is a Democrat from Baltimore County. He said, what the Maryland Transit Administration is doing is a mass surveillance. I found it outrageous. I don't want to overstate it, but this is the issue of our generation. As technology advances, it becomes easier and easier to encroach on people's civil liberties, which I 100% agree with. That's been the problem for as long as technology has been around. Like, the law has been so ridiculously far behind the times of technology, almost to the point of being offensive. I guess the closest the law has come to being really up to speed with technology is when the revenge porn law got passed. And that was, for those of you who don't know, that's the law that says it's illegal to take nude photos given to you in confidence and spread them on social media for the purpose of embarrassing the person in the photos, which has been rampant in society, and the law finally caught up to it and said, no, that's illegal. But then you have issues like this, where a massive transit administration is, really behind the times on, like, what is and what isn't okay. Like, this is not okay, to do in mass. I've never thought that, mass tapping into calls has been okay. I've never had that opinion, never once. For as long as I've been able to form an opinion, I've been against, things like what the MTA is doing, and, the whole NSA debacle where they could tap into any phone and they're getting all of this data. I've never been okay with that. But yeah, so this is coming out. The MTA began using recording devices inside some of its buses in 2012, and they did this without seeking legislative approval, which, okay, that's so not okay. Nearly 500 of its fleet of 750 buses now have audio recording capabilities. Officials say that the devices are usable and okay to be used because they can capture important information in cases of driver error or an attacker altercation on a bus. I'm assuming they're trying to liken it to black boxes on commercial airplanes. Which, okay, if you're doing that, then you put it in a place where it's not going to catch the entire bus, and you only do it for driver error. A lot of buses already, not only do buses come standard with audioless video cameras that can catch incidents, but it's 2016. Everybody has a flippin' iPhone or smartphone that has 2 cameras on it. And they record everything. Believe me. There are a lot of videos, people just pulling out their phone and shooting video vertically because they're so in the moment that they don't know how to record video correctly, but that's a different issue. But I've seen a lot of fights on buses. A shocking number of fights on buses. But they're all captured by normal people with a smartphone. There's no need for audio recording to catch an altercation on a bus. Especially with the number of smartphones in the world and the fact that there are already cameras on a lot of buses. Like, a lot of buses across the country have some sort of video recording capability. Not many of them have audio to go with the video, but it still captures what happens. There's no need for audio recording beyond right up by the driver to catch any driver error. Which, again, they're trying to liken it to a black box on a plane, and that's fine. So this bill idea has been delayed. There's obviously going to be a huge legislative fight, which is going to go nowhere soon, because we all know how long they take to do anything. But yeah, Senator Zirkin actually went on to say, I can make an argument to tape everybody everywhere they walk, everywhere they talk, and you can make the excuse for Homeland Security. But that is not a valid reason to encroach this fundamentally on people's privacy rights. This is actually the fourth time in 4 years that the bill to limit recordings has been introduced. Previous pieces of legislation have never actually made it out of the committee. But Zirkin's committee unanimously approved it this year. Senate President Thomas V. Mike Miller Jr., who's another Democrat, indicated last week he doesn't like the bill and would vote against it, as he feels the limitations could compromise security and he does not want to incur the cost of replacing existing equipment. Yeah, I mean, just, I guess kind of just a real mess. You know, like, it's very cut and dry the way this should go. It's 100% like everybody knows the way this issue should happen. It should be public transit cannot record, cannot, mass record every conversation, everything that happens on a bus all the time. They can't do that. But, legislators in Maryland are deciding to take their sweet time with it to make sure that there aren't any flaws in the way they're thinking, which, I don't know. I try to stay out of politics because I never have a positive opinion. I try to stay out of legislative discussions for much the same reason. It's never a positive opinion. I can think well of people in certain situations, but overall it's never a fun conversation to have. But this could set a precedent. If it goes, no matter how it falls, this is going to be a precedent. Maryland could be the first state to say, no, this isn't okay, and states, other states follow in its footsteps. Or they could go, okay, no, it's a homeland security issue. We're not going to risk security by taking out these audio recording devices, and then other states deciding to go along with it in the name of homeland security. Oh, it's a national problem. We need to, keep everybody safe, so we need to record everything that happens on every bus. But this is going to set a precedent. And hopefully they pick the right precedent to set. But this is going to be a major decision, regardless of what actually happens. Okay, on to a bit of lighter and a bit of weirder news. I'm sure most of you have either tried yoga or groaned about people trying to get you to try yoga. I'm one of the latter people. I despise the idea. But this story is coming out of Calgary. It's called Rage Yoga. And it's almost the polar opposite of yoga. It uses a lot of the same poses and stances, but it's all about screaming your issues away. One of their signature poses, which you can see in this article, is holding up the finger, and that's very indicative of what the entire practice is like. So yeah, out of Calgary, Lindsay Estates' Rage Yoga classes. They're actually held in the corner of a pub. So it's just one thing after another. It's just so opposite of yoga. But it does seem to be effective. I'm going to play a clip for you from an interview that CBC had with Estace. So I want you to take a listen. This is Rage Yoga at its finest.
For those who are familiar with screaming and giving up on life, we're going to get up a little bit. It's going to happen a little earlier this time. Inhale ourselves nice and high. On the exhale, we're just going to yeah. Pull yourselves up nice and tall again. This is your opportunity to let out all the storm and stress that may have been your day. Imagine somebody who's really just pissed you off and just scream it out. So inhale nice and high, exhale, and Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Rage Yoga. And if you could hear, there's some pretty solid metal playing in the background, as opposed to, if not silence, then near silence in normal yoga classes. You scream obscenities, and it's more of, I'm sure you remember growing up, the way you release anger was to grab a pillow and scream into it or punch a pillow. I know I've done both those things. And, Rage Yoga is kind of taking off as the more adult version of punching a pillow. Yeah, very, very weird times in Canada. Very, very weird times. But, I certainly wouldn't say no to this. If this comes anywhere closer to Ypsi, like if this comes in even just the general Southwest Michigan area, or Southeast, I would not mind going to a class and trying it. All right, going to get to another check of weather and our final check of sports for this show. Kind of a mixed bag this next week. We've got a bit of snow, but a lot higher temps, which is good considering it's March. Tomorrow we're looking at a high of 55, a low of 34, partly cloudy, no snow. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday we're looking at snow every day, but it's all going to be 50s and 60s. Tuesday, 62, 30% chance of snow. Wednesday is going to be 60 with a 70% chance of snow. Thursday is going to be 51, back to a 30% chance of snow. And then Friday, partly cloudy, high of 52. Saturday ups it with a high of 56, so there is a 60% chance of snow. And next Sunday, the 13th, it looks like it's going to be all snow all day, but a high of 55. So, like it was most of this past week, if anything does stick, it's going to be on. It's just going to stick to itself. So it's going to be on the grass and on the rooftops of houses and on the trees. But the temps are going to be. It's all 50s and 60s. Mid to upper 50s and 60s. So it's not going to make a mess. It's going to be nice snow. Not, oh my God, why do I have to go shovel for the 13th time in 2 days kind of snow. It's going to be nice. It may be annoying to walk through, but 20 minutes after it stops, you're not going to notice a single thing. All right, so final check of sports. Much like the weather, kind of a mixed bag. The Red Wings lost Wednesday 5-2 to the Blackhawks. Richards and Sheahan both scored, but not until the third period. Next game is Tuesday against the Blue Jackets in Columbus. And currently, we lost to the Blackhawks tonight 4-1. So we dropped 2 games to Chicago, 2 humiliating losses. But if any team can pull it back and make something good out of it, it's going to be the Red Wings. They kind of have a thing about doing that. EMU basketball, continue our phenomenal season. We rallied in the second half to beat Toledo 79-75. Bond and Mangum led the Eagles with 13 points each. Thompson had 8 rebounds. The next game is tomorrow night at 7:30 against Toledo in the first round of the MAC tournament. Beating Toledo when we did guaranteed us home court advantage in the first round. So it'll be at the Convocation Center. And much like the recommendation I gave last week, if you're in the area, absolutely go see it. Absolutely go see it. We have been just phenomenal this season, which is weird because our football team is definitely not. But our basketball, especially this season, go watch it. If you're in the area, and even if you're not in the area, if you're within an hour of Ypsi, just come on over to the Convocation Center and watch us beat Toledo again. Detroit Pistons, embarrassing loss at Madison Square Garden to the Knicks, 102-89. Andre Drummond led the Pistons with 21 points and 16 rebounds, but it was just no use. The only quarter we outscored them in was the third, and that was only by 6 points. The next game is Wednesday against the Mavericks at the American Airlines Center in Dallas. And currently, with just under 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, we are up over the Trailblazers 76-63. So we're looking good to, carry at least a one-game amount of momentum into Dallas. Okay, it's currently 7:47 on this Sunday, the 6th of March. And I'm going to do something a bit different. This isn't necessarily news per se, but it is a question I've gotten pretty frequently, and one I've not had an answer to, because currently it's impossible to have an answer to the question. And the question is, how can I listen to the show if I miss it Sunday nights? My knee-jerk reaction is, well, how dare you miss a show? What's wrong with you? But once I get over myself, I say that there really is currently no way. My knee-jerk, my immediate answer would be, normally, I would post them to YouTube, and I'd link them to Facebook. I'd share them on social media so you can find it that way. But YouTube is kind of, and I say kind of, it's really having an issue with fair use and false copyright claims. And the reason none of my shows are anywhere outside of this station Sunday nights from 6 to 8 is because posting them to YouTube is a surefire way to get them taken down immediately because of the 40 to 50 minutes of music I have in every show, and then for there to be more copyright strikes on my account that there are currently, and for my account to be terminated. Now, for those of you who follow copyright law, there is this concept called fair use, and what it's supposed to be is a way for content creators to be free from false copyright claims and being able to protect their work. A lot of people use it for, if there are, if teachers use video aids that are on YouTube. That's education. They can't be taken down because of fair use. Reviews and criticisms. A lot of people use it for movies. Channels like The Nostalgia Critic and A Dose of Buckley and I Hate Everything, and even the Angry Video Game Nerd, all are under reviews and criticisms. But I had a school assignment from last year. It was an air check for my audio production class. Purely educational. The only reason I had it posted anywhere was for an immediate way to show an employer, a potential employer, hey, here's what I can do, this is my writing, this is, my choice of music, this is me at the board, working this 5-minute air check. 5 minutes, mind you. So I was making no money on it. I was no threat to either of the record companies or record labels that were featured in the video. It was a school assignment posted purely as a convenience to potential employers. So I could pull it out right there and go, okay, here's this. They could watch it again and, study it later on. I wouldn't have to go, okay, well, let me email it to you tonight and, maybe you can look at it tomorrow. That's why I posted it to YouTube, so I could avoid that. But there was a copyright claim made against the video by SME Records, who work for who are under RCA, and they tagged a pentatonic song for copyright. And this was obviously very, very clearly under fair use. It wasn't the whole song, it was the first verse and the chorus, and that was it. Educational use. I wasn't making any money on it. I certainly, as a channel, I was no threat to any record label. Ever. I'm not a threat to anybody with my channel. But there was a copyright notice, and I filed a counter notice, which is one of YouTube's 3 completely useless ways to fight copyright. And that didn't work. The copyright claim was, back on the video. There was a short period where I had a reprieve, but then it was back on, and I had a copyright strike on my account. 2 more, and my account is terminated permanently. So this led me to look up any similar issues that other people have had. And there have been full review videos taken down, even more blatantly avoiding fair use than I did. And YouTube has done nothing to stop it. None of its 3 methods are effective in doing anything other than wasting your time for no outcome. You don't speak to a human ever through any of YouTube's ways. Nobody actually watches your video to make sure that the copyright claim is legitimate. It's all automated. It's a huge, automatic, personless middle finger to you for any number of assorted reasons. So when people ask me how they can listen to the show after the fact, which, much like reruns on TV and, places like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime where you can find some of this older content and stream it and watch or listen to it whenever you want, at your convenience, radio stations have archives for all of their shows. I don't have a way to do that, as my primary method is currently no longer an option because of its broken copyright system. So as much as I would like for all of you listening right now to go, hey, okay, I like this show. Let me go back and listen to some of his, earlier shows. Well, first off, thank you for supporting the show like that. And then I would also like to apologize because there's legally no way for me to do it right now. I can't post it to YouTube because of the copyright system. Dailymotion, the next video site, has a 30-minute time limit for videos. And I haven't found anywhere to post just the audio file. So, to those of you who have been asking, it's not that I'm ignoring you, or it's not that I don't care. It's just I actually have no way of getting around any potential legal issues. And while I could edit out the music, it's a very viable option. And if I can get that, if I have to re-upload that air check that got claimed, I will be taking the music out. But because music is not only half the show, but half of the name of the show, DJ Eclectic is the music portion of this. It would be taking a huge chunk out of the show and really not even making it worth it to listen, because it would just be such a cut-up, garbled, incoherent mess of a show. Only an hour and 10 minutes. And then it's just some schmuck talking into a mic. There's no variety. So I'm definitely not ignoring you, but until YouTube can fix its copyright issues, there's nothing I can do about posting shows. But the moment I do find a way, you guys will be the first to know. And it's 7:56 on this Sunday, the 6th of March. That is going to do it for the show. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I will see you all here, same time, same place, Sunday at 6. Here is It's Gonna Be Me by NSYNC.